All right, one of the things that we want to do now that we are in air quotes running in production is to actually start doing releases. And it's a good habit to use a release plugin because there's some things that you want to do. And release plugins, there's a very popular plugin for Maven that does releases. This is a Gradle release plugin by ResearchGate. I'm not really familiar with those people particularly, but this is a nice release plugin that works for Gradle for us. And it gives us a task that we can run inside of Gradle. And what's important about it is how it handles the source code for us, because it'll automatically not only handle the release for us, the actual commit update of it, but what you can see here is it's going to work with source control and tag the releases for us. So when we do an official release, it's going to go ahead and tag it. So you can see I've ran some testing here, and it's also, you can see that the Gradle release plugin, new version commit, and it goes back to the snapshot. So what happens is we are running on a snapshot release, which is a development release. And when we run the plugin, it will increment, it would actually do a release of the 003 plugin, commit that to source control, and then increment it to 004-snapshot and commit that to source control. So there's a couple commits that happen, but the main thing that we want to be looking at is to see these tags in there, because you want to tag it, commit it, and that'll trigger the build on that commit. And that way you have a tagged version of your source control of what was in that. So to set this plugin up, let's take a quick look at that inside of IntelliJ. Just a couple minor things that we had to add in. So we had to add in this dependency here, the Research Gradle release plugin, and then there's the version. And then down here we had to say apply plugin ResearchGate. Now if I come down to terminal to run this, we just do Gradle release. And you can see it's going to come in here, and we are just going to take the default. All we got to do is hit enter, and it's going to go through and do the build, and then it's going to ask us one more time when it does the increment to the snapshot version, and I'll just hit enter again. And it actually works out quite nicely. It automates a lot of the tasks that you normally would have to do when you're doing a release. It does this all automatically for you and works with your source control. Now, this release plugin does work with several different source control providers. GitHub is one of them, which is what we are using for the project. Now, to get this plugin working, there's a couple minor changes that I needed to make. The project version is not kept in the build file anymore, or the build.gradle file. They move it over to gradle.properties. And here you can see that I'm running it again, and the version property is set there. Now, this causes problems with the build tools for JHipster, and in the utils here, this is coming in. It's kind of a little hackish to find the version number, and this was looking at build.gradle and running this regex here. I had to modify the regex expression, and there's an old joke. Never been a big fan of regex. It's very, very powerful, but it always confuses me personally. There's an old joke that says a programmer went to solve a problem with regex and wound up with two problems. So it's an old running joke. Regex is a little touchy and finicky, but also a very, very powerful tool. And I'm running another release now because what was happening was the build was failing up in Circle CI. And so I ran several releases trying to get this correct. And it was actually when you're running the production build that the Circle CI server was running, that's where this would manifest itself, and ran into a few issues there as to how it was calculating that version number, and it was causing the build to fail. So I went in and fixed that, and now Circle CI should be happy again. And the reason we want Circle CI happy, because let me remind you, in our Circle CI build, we are actually pushing that. So we're pushing it up by the latest tag and also the version tag. And you can see, let's jump over to Circle CI. I'll show you some of the problems that I had. If I come in and look, you can see I did fail a bunch of builds trying to figure out this problem with the tagging and that regex at exactly where it was failing. At first, I had a couple different problems here to work through, but we can see that this did fix itself, and I did go through, and we'll take a quick look here. we can see that we did successfully build and push this tag here. And let's take a look over here. We can see that now in my repository for this up on Docker Hub that I do have a snapshot version there. I am currently running a release, so we can get a release version. So now the .5 has completed. Let's take a quick look here. And now I have an actual, and I'm using air quotes, release there. So it is a tagged version. Now what's going to happen up in Docker Hub, the way this works is we do build up images, and a tag is just exactly that, a tag to that image. And an image can have multiple tags, but if you go up and replace a new image and use the same tag value, now that tag is pointing to a different image. So latest is going to point to the latest image, but a pitfall with Docker that you need to be aware of is if you use that latest tag and you pull down the latest from Docker Hub and you're running that latest image, what's going to happen is if that latest image changes, Docker is going to be happy and not pull back that image. So there's tools and commands around it, but the default behavior of Docker is to use your local image. So when you start using Docker in production, you do want to be running against tags. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how we can pull down a specifically tagged image for our use. And again, I'll show you that specifically coming up in the next video, but I want you to be aware of how that latest tag is working.